On the very first morning, I sat down in front of my trading screen. I had no idea I was opening the door to a completely different world. A world without colleagues, without the background noise of an office, without boring meetings, and without laughter at the end of the day. Instead, I was staring at cold numbers flashing across the screen, candlesticks shooting up and collapsing in seconds, and my own heartbeat racing faster than usual as my orders got filled. I didn't know it back then, but that day I began a journey into a profession where solitude would become my most loyal companion. At first glance, trading seems to promise absolute freedom. No boss breathing down your neck, no deadlines to crush your weekends, no office politics. The idea that you can decide your own schedule and shape your own future sounds almost too good to be true. But only a few months in, reality hit me with full force. Trading isn't just a job, it is a lifestyle. And it is a lifestyle built on silence, discipline, and above all, long stretches of solitude that can break you if you are not prepared for it. I still remember when I first told my friends that I wanted to trade full time. Some laughed. Others warned me that trading was nothing more than gambling. My family worried, my friends doubted, and even the people closest to me didn't believe it could be a sustainable career. At family dinners, the same question would always come up. When are you going to get a real job? I understood their concern, but I also realized something else. Trading is a path where you cannot expect validation in the beginning. You are surrounded by doubt, and only you know why you are fighting this battle. On Wall Street, they say, the market is a ruthless beast. It doesn't know who you are, it doesn't care where you come from, and it certainly doesn't care how hard you've worked. Those words have stayed with me to this day. The market gives you no privileges. Whether you are a rookie just starting out or a veteran with decades under your belt, everyone faces the same chart, the same price, the same ticking clock. The only real difference lies in your psychology. And psychology is forged in solitude, day after day, year after year. The loneliness of this profession isn't just about sitting in front of a screen by yourself. It's about being cut off from the rhythm of the outside world. While your friends are meeting at cafes, chatting about office politics or their next vacation, you are glued to the New York Open, listening to every tick of gold, equities, or the dollar. While your family sleeps peacefully, you're in a dimly lit room, the blue glow of your screen painting your face, waiting for an opportunity that may or may not come. You slowly become different, a person who no longer moves in sync with the rest of society. People often ask me, why keep trading? Why not just get a stable job like everyone else? The answer is both simple and complicated, because I cannot live any other way. Trading gives me freedom, but that freedom comes at the cost of solitude. And the truth is, unless you learn to embrace solitude, you will not survive long in this business. In my early years, I saw loneliness as a burden. After consecutive losing streaks, when my account balance was bleeding, I wanted to talk to someone, anyone, who would understand. But the more I tried, the more I realized no one truly could. They didn't feel the tension of watching price reverse in an instant. They didn't know the pain of being stopped out within seconds. They didn't know the exhaustion of waiting hours for a setup only to miss it at the last second. Trading is a fight no outsider can really understand. Eventually, I stopped talking about it. I learned to keep it all inside. Silence became part of who I was. What I eventually discovered is that solitude is not an enemy. It is the very foundation of psychological growth. When there is no one to lean on, you are forced to confront your own fear and greed. You have to listen to yourself, analyze your emotions, and control them. That is why almost every successful trader is someone with an extraordinary level of self-discipline. They know there is no supervisor, no reminder, and no one else to take responsibility. Solitude forces you to be your own boss, and that is far harder than being an employee. I have been through losses that nearly broke me, days where I couldn't bear to look at my account. In those moments, loneliness felt heavier than ever. No colleagues to vent to, no friends who could really understand. Yet, those were the days that taught me the most. I realized solitude was not my enemy. It was a permanent part of the game. Just like light cannot exist without darkness, freedom cannot exist without solitude. Success cannot exist without silence. More than a decade later, looking back, I see that solitude was my greatest teacher. It taught me patience because no one else was there to push me forward. It taught me restraint because no one was there to stop me from overtrading. It taught me humility because quiet moments reminded me the market will always be bigger than me. And most of all, it taught me to be grateful for silence because only in silence can you truly hear the voice inside your own head, the voice of a trader learning to grow. Today, when I talk about trading, I no longer paint it as a golden path. I want you to know the truth. This is a lonely profession, and you must accept that from the start. If you are searching for constant excitement, recognition, or a supportive team at your side, you will be disappointed. But if you are ready for a journey where the true victory lies in conquering yourself, then trading will unlock a kind of freedom no other career can offer. Trading is a lonely profession, but within that loneliness lies a strange kind of beauty, the beauty of self-control, of independence, of resilience built in silence. And that is why, after all these years, I am still here, still placing trades, still watching the cold numbers dance across the screen, still learning day by day to embrace the solitude of this profession when no one understands you. There is a certain kind of loneliness that cuts deeper than sitting alone in a quiet room. It is the loneliness of being surrounded by people who love you, yet knowing they cannot possibly understand the path you've chosen. If trading is already a solitary pursuit, the absence of understanding from others is what makes that solitude heavier than iron. When I first started, I thought I could explain trading to people close to me. I thought that if I spoke clearly enough, if I showed them charts, if I broke down the math behind risk and reward, they would see what I saw. They would see the logic, the discipline, the potential. I could not have been more wrong. To most people, trading looks like gambling wrapped in a suit. They only see the risk, never the structure. They only see the losses, never the preparation. At family gatherings, I often heard the same polite but skeptical questions. How is your trading going? Making any money yet? On the surface, they were just being curious, but underneath, I could feel the disbelief. And when I tried to explain, their eyes glazed over. They nodded, but I could tell they weren't listening. Because how could they? To them, the idea that someone could sit in front of a screen and pull money out of markets was closer to fantasy than reality. Friends were no different. They were climbing their corporate ladders, posting promotions on LinkedIn, celebrating milestones with their teams. When they looked at me, they didn't see a career. They saw someone who refused to get a real job. They saw stubbornness. They saw risk without reward. And every time I tried to share a success, a good trade, a strong week, it fell flat. They didn't know the struggle behind it, so they couldn't appreciate the win. This is what no one tells you about trading. The further you go, the less people you can talk to about it. The deeper your understanding becomes, the fewer people you can share it with. And slowly, you stop trying. You stop bringing it up. You stop explaining. You carry it all inside because you realize that no amount of words can bridge the gap between your world and theirs. That gap only widens when you lose. Losses in trading aren't like setbacks in other careers. When an employee makes a mistake at work, there's usually a team to pick up the slack, a manager to take some responsibility, a company structure to absorb the blow. But in trading, when you lose, it is entirely yours. Every bad decision, every impatient entry, every time you ignored your rules, it is you and only you. Try telling that to someone who doesn't trade. They'll nod, maybe sympathize, but they won't understand the sting of watching your own money vanish because of your own choices. They won't understand the silence that follows a losing streak when you're staring at a chart, questioning not just your strategy, but yourself. I remember one night in particular. I had taken a series of losses that week, the kind that shakes you to your core. My account was down significantly, and my confidence was shattered. That evening, a friend invited me to dinner. At the table, people laughed, joked about their jobs, talked about office politics. When someone asked me how work was going, I forced a smile and said, "It's fine, just another week." Inside, though, I was bleeding. I wanted to tell them what it felt like to watch thousands evaporate in hours, to question whether I was cut out for this profession. But I knew if I tried, it would only sound dramatic or foolish. So I kept it to myself. I laughed when they laughed, but I felt like a ghost at that table. That's when I realized trading is a path where external validation is rare, sometimes non existent. If you need people to cheer for you, if you need applause to keep going, you will not last. Because most of the time, you will be met with silence, skepticism, or misunderstanding. It's not just outsiders either. Even among traders, the understanding is limited. Each trader has a different style, a different time frame, a different risk tolerance. What breaks me might not even register for someone else. What excites me might bore another. This business is so personal, so internal, that even within the community, true understanding is scarce. So, what do you do when no one understands you? You learn to stop seeking it. You learn to find validation in process, not praise. You learn to become your own source of accountability, your own mentor, your own support system. Wall Street veterans often say, the market doesn't care about your feelings. That is brutally true, but I would add something. The world doesn't care about your trading either. You must build a mindset where that indifference no longer wounds you, where you no longer need to be understood in order to keep moving forward. Over the years, I've trained myself to find strength in silence. When I win, I celebrate alone. When I lose, I grieve alone. The market has taught me that the only applause that matters is the quiet nod I give myself when I've executed my plan with discipline, regardless of the outcome. That doesn't mean the loneliness disappears. There are still nights when I wish someone truly understood what it feels like to hold a position through a volatile session, to fight the urge to exit too early, to ride the emotional roller coaster without derailing. But then I remember, this is the path I chose. And with that choice comes isolation. What most people cannot grasp is that trading is not just about money, it is about identity. It shapes who you are, how you think, how you see the world. It rewires you. You begin to think in probabilities, in risk versus reward, in terms of discipline and patience. You stop looking for certainty because you know it doesn't exist. That mindset sets you apart. You no longer fit neatly into conversations about careers, about 9 to 5 routines, about stability. You've chosen uncertainty, and in a world addicted to security, that makes you an outlier. At times, being misunderstood feels like a curse. But over time, I've come to see it differently. It is also a filter. It separates those who are willing to face reality as it is from those who want to live in illusions. It forces you to develop resilience, to stand alone, to keep walking even when no one else sees the path. And ironically, that misunderstanding is what makes the victories so sweet. Because when you win, you know it wasn't because the world believed in you. It was because you believed in yourself when no one else did. After more than a decade, I no longer expect people to understand. I no longer need them to. I know that when I sit in front of my screens, it is just me and the market, and that's enough. Understanding, support, validation, those are luxuries. What really matters is discipline, patience, and resilience. So when no one understands you, remember this: you don't need them to. This profession is not built on being understood. It is built on surviving, learning, and adapting. If you can carry that truth in your heart, then solitude will no longer feel like a weight. It will feel like armor. And with that armor, you will be able to face the market and yourself every single day. The market doesn't care about your emotions. There's a brutal truth every trader eventually learns, usually the hard way. The market does not care about your feelings. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you've had a rough day. It doesn't care if you need this trade to work out so you can pay the bills or prove something to yourself. The market is indifferent. It moves on its own rhythm, driven by forces far larger than you. And if you bring your emotions to the battlefield, you're already at a disadvantage. Early in my career, I believed the market had some kind of fairness built into it. I thought if I worked hard, studied enough charts, spent enough nights backtesting, the market would eventually reward me. I thought persistence alone guaranteed results. But the market doesn't think in those terms. It doesn't recognize effort. It doesn't hand out prizes for trying. It reacts only to order flow, supply and demand, crowd behavior. Your emotions are invisible to it, and yet they are the very thing most likely to destroy you. Every trader knows the feeling of revenge trading. You take a loss, you feel cheated, you feel the market has wronged you, and in that moment, emotions hijack your decision-making. You chase the next trade, not because it fits your plan, but because you want to get even. And 9 times out of 10, that decision digs you into a deeper hole. I've been there. I've felt the rush of anger in my chest after getting stopped out by a single pip, only to watch the market reverse and go in the direction I expected. I've slammed my desk, cursed the screen, convinced myself the market was out to get me. But the reality is, the market didn't even know I existed. It wasn't personal. It never is. Fear and greed are the twin forces that drive most traders to ruin. Fear keeps you from taking trades you should, and greed pushes you into trades you shouldn't. Fear makes you cut winners too early. Greed makes you hold losers too long. And both emotions are born from the illusion that somehow you can control the outcome. You cannot. All you can control is your process. The market decides everything else. I remember a specific trade from my third year that still haunts me. I had been watching the S&P 500 futures all week. My setup finally appeared, clean as day. I entered, size appropriate, stop loss in place. At first, the trade moved against me slightly, nothing unusual. But as the drawdown deepened, fear started whispering, what if this turns into a disaster? What if you're wrong? Instead of letting the stop work, I panicked. I closed the position early. Within an hour, the market reversed sharply in my favor. Had I stuck to my plan, it would have been one of my best trades that month. Instead, fear robbed me of it. On the other side of the coin, greed once led me into a nightmare with crude oil futures. I had already hit my target for the day. I was green, satisfied. But then a sharp move unfolded, and I thought, why not one more? This could be huge. I ignored my rule about daily profit caps. I sized up too much, convinced this was the jackpot trade. Within minutes, the market reversed violently. Not only did I give back the day's profit, I closed in the red. That single lapse, born purely out of greed, erased hours of discipline. These are not isolated stories. They are the daily traps waiting for every trader who forgets the simple rule: the market doesn't care about your emotions. If you let feelings dictate your decisions, you're playing a rigged game against yourself. Over time, I began to see trading less like a career and more like combat. The market is not your friend. It is not your enemy either. It is simply a vast, neutral battlefield. But the enemy you face is inside your own head. Your fear, your greed, your impatience, those are the real opponents. The market merely exposes them. That's why trading psychology is not optional. You can master every technical indicator, every chart pattern, every fundamental report. But if you can't master yourself, none of it matters. I've seen traders with brilliant strategies implode because they couldn't handle the emotional swings. I've also seen traders with average strategies survive and thrive simply because they were disciplined enough to stick to their process. The best traders I've met treat trading like a business. They don't fall in love with trades. They don't get emotionally attached to outcomes. They execute their plan the way a pilot follows a checklist. Calm, consistent, methodical. If a trade loses, it's just the cost of doing business. If it wins, it's just revenue. No celebration, no despair, just process. That is easier said than done. Emotions don't disappear just because you want them to. You can't flip a switch and suddenly stop caring about money. This is real capital at risk, often hard-earned, sometimes life-changing. Of course, emotions will flare, but the key is to feel them without letting them dictate your actions, to notice the fear, the greed, the anger, and then still follow the plan. That is the discipline the market demands. One exercise that changed me was journaling not just my trades, but my emotions. After every trade, I wrote down what I felt before, during, and after. Over time, patterns emerged. I could see that I was most reckless after a win, most hesitant after a loss, most impatient late at night. By shining a light on those tendencies, I stripped them of their power. Awareness gave me control. Another shift was learning to detach from money in the moment. I began to think in probabilities, not dollars. Instead of asking, will I make money on this trade? I asked, does this setup meet my criteria? Instead of calculating what the win could buy me, I reminded myself it was just one of many trades in a series. Money became secondary. Execution became primary. The irony is that the less you care about each individual trade, the better you perform. Because when you stop tying your self-worth to outcomes, you stop sabotaging yourself. You let the law of large numbers do its work. Over 100 trades, your edge shows up, but only if you don't destroy it by panicking or overreaching. When new traders ask me for advice, I don't start with strategies. I start with this truth. The market is emotionless, and if you want to survive, you must learn to trade the same way. That doesn't mean becoming a robot. It means building systems that protect you from your weaker self. Position sizing, stop losses, daily limits, these are not just risk management tools. They are emotional management tools. They keep you from making decisions in the heat of the moment that you'll regret later. 10 years in, I no longer expect the market to care. I no longer ask for fairness. I no longer rage when it whipsaws or trends endlessly without me. I've accepted its indifference. The only thing I can influence is myself, my preparation, my execution, my discipline. So remember this, the market doesn't care about your emotions, but it will exploit them brutally if you let them control you. Fear will cost you profits. Greed will cost you capital. Anger will cost you clarity. The market doesn't punish you on purpose. It simply reflects your lack of control back at you. Master yourself, and you'll stop bleeding unnecessarily. Fail to do so, and the market will teach you the same lesson again and again until you either learn or quit. And that's the reality of trading. The battlefield is neutral. The fight is internal. The price of independence. There is a paradox in the life of a trader. Most people enter this profession because they crave independence. They dream of being free from bosses, office politics, and the endless corporate ladder that never seems to lead anywhere. They imagine trading as the ultimate expression of freedom. Wake up when you want, work from anywhere in the world, make money with a few keystrokes, and answer to no one. On the surface, it looks like the perfect escape from the suffocating routines of the traditional workforce. But the price of this independence is rarely understood. It is not simply about learning charts, indicators, or risk management. It is about learning how to live with yourself when the only accountability partner you have is the reflection staring back at you in the screen. Independence sounds glamorous when you are outside the game. But once you are inside, you discover that the very thing you wanted, absolute freedom, can become your heaviest burden. Trading without a safety net. In a normal job, mistakes have cushions. If you send a wrong email, your manager may correct you. If you make a poor business decision, a team can step in and share responsibility. Even if a project fails, the company absorbs part of the loss, and you still collect your paycheck at the end of the month. Trading does not work this way. One wrong decision, one impulsive entry, one ignored stop loss, and you are punished immediately and personally. There is no safety net. The market does not offer performance reviews or second chances. You are either right or wrong in real time, and your account balance reflects it instantly. That reality forces you to carry a weight that few other professions demand: complete responsibility for every decision. This is the true price of independence, knowing that there is no one else to blame, no one to clean up your mistakes, no one to soften the blow. It is raw accountability, and it cuts deeper than most people can endure: the absence of structure. Another hidden cost of independence is the absence of external structure. In a corporate environment, your day is dictated for you. Meetings at 9, reports due at noon, deadlines at 5. You may hate it, but that structure gives you rhythm, discipline, and guardrails. As a trader, your time is entirely your own. No one cares if you wake up at dawn or at noon. No one forces you to analyze charts before the market opens. No one checks if you follow your strategy or abandon it out of boredom. This freedom is intoxicating, but it is also dangerous. Human beings naturally resist discipline when no external authority exists. Without guardrails, many traders drift. They overtrade, they gamble, they chase. They convince themselves that tomorrow they will be more disciplined. But tomorrow looks exactly like today, and slowly, the account bleeds away. Independence demands that you create your own structure, and for most people, that is a skill they have never developed. Schools, jobs, and social obligations have always imposed it from the outside. When all of that disappears, the average person collapses under the weight of their own freedom. Freedom's loneliness. Independence also carries an emotional tax: loneliness. You may have the freedom to work anywhere in the world, but who do you work with? Who understands the weight of your decisions? Who shares the high of a perfect trade or the crushing silence of a loss? Most people around you, family, friends, acquaintances, cannot truly understand. To them, trading is either gambling or some mysterious money machine. They do not see the hours of preparation, the psychological battles, the discipline required to survive. And because they do not understand, they cannot connect with your journey. So you celebrate wins alone, and you endure losses alone. This is the paradox of independence. You have no boss, no colleagues, and no obligations. But you also have no community, no companionship, no one to truly share the weight of the grind. Independence, once your dream, becomes a quiet form of isolation. The internal boss. When you remove the external boss, you inherit a new one, yourself. And this boss is far stricter than any corporate manager. This boss knows when you cut corners, when you ignore your plan, when you skip your analysis. This boss cannot be deceived because this boss lives in your mind. Many traders fail not because their strategy is weak, but because they cannot manage themselves as their own boss. They lack self-control, they crave instant gratification, and they crumble under emotional pressure. They forget that independence is not a license to do whatever you want. It is a demand to enforce rules on yourself with relentless discipline. Your internal boss must hold you accountable when no one else will. It must be ruthless when your impulses are reckless. It must fire you from a bad decision before the market does it for you. Without this inner authority, independence turns into chaos, and chaos destroys traders faster than any technical mistake. The psychological burden of self-reliance. Independence means you cannot outsource responsibility. When you lose, it is not because the economy was unfair or because a manager failed to guide you. It is because you made the decision. When you blow an account, there is no HR department to file a complaint with. There is only your own reflection, demanding answers. This burden can be crushing. It can lead to self-doubt, paralysis, and cycles of revenge trading. Some traders quit not because they lack skill, but because they cannot handle the psychological weight of being fully responsible for their financial destiny. The irony is that independence is what drew them to trading, but it is also what breaks them. Freedom without the maturity to handle it is not a blessing, it is a curse. The price worth paying. And yet, for those who endure, the price of independence is worth it. Yes, it is costly. Yes, it demands more discipline than most people will ever understand. Yes, it is lonely, exhausting, and often unforgiving. But it is also the price of ultimate freedom. To wake up and know that no one controls your income but you. To know that you are not trapped in a corporate hierarchy, not limited by a manager's opinion, not chained to an office desk. To know that your success or failure lies entirely in your hands, that is both terrifying and liberating. The price of independence is not measured in dollars. It is measured in resilience, in discipline, in the strength to confront yourself day after day without flinching. It is measured in your ability to survive when no one else is watching, when no one is applauding, when no one understands. Independence is not free. But for those who can afford its price, not with money, but with mindset, it is the greatest reward a trader can earn. Closing thoughts. Trading strips away illusions. It gives you what you wanted, freedom, flexibility, independence, but it forces you to pay with the currency of discipline, solitude, and relentless accountability. Most cannot pay that price. That is why most fail. But if you can accept the weight of independence, if you can build structure in a world without guardrails, if you can manage yourself with the severity of a boss who tolerates no excuses, then the freedom that trading offers is unlike anything else on Wall Street or beyond it. The question is not whether independence is expensive. The question is whether you are willing to pay for it every single day with your time, your discipline, and your mental strength. Because in trading, independence is never given. It is earned. There is a strange paradox in trading that only those who have lived through years of market battles will truly understand. Your greatest victories often feel like the loneliest moments of your life. Success in this game rarely comes with confetti, applause, or the celebratory toast of colleagues gathered around you. It usually comes in silence, in a dimly lit room with nothing but the soft glow of your screen reflecting back at you. You sit there, staring at a number flashing in green, realizing you just pulled off a trade that months ago you would not even have had the courage to take. The profit might equal an entire month's salary in a corporate job, or in some cases, a full year. Yet instead of standing ovations, there is only you, your heartbeat slowing down, your breathing steadying, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you executed flawlessly. It is in those moments that you come face to face with the lonely nature of triumph in trading. The world will never fully grasp the depth of the discipline, patience, and emotional control it took to arrive at that outcome. They will only see the number. They will only hear you say you made money. But the war you fought, the doubts you conquered, the urge you resisted, the countless hours of chart study that nobody saw, those remain invisible, winning in silence. When I think back on some of my biggest wins, I cannot remember anyone being there with me. There was no one leaning over my shoulder, no cheering squad watching the market tick in my favor. The profits were real, but the celebrations were quiet. Maybe I allowed myself a glass of whiskey or a silent smile. Maybe I wrote something short in my trading journal. That was it. And that is one of the strangest truths about trading. The market forces you to celebrate in silence. Unlike team sports, there is no locker room full of teammates to embrace. Unlike the corporate world, there is no manager giving you public recognition or a raise in front of your peers. Your win is yours alone. To outsiders, that sounds lonely. But to a seasoned trader, that silence becomes sacred. It is a space where you can absorb what just happened, where you can acknowledge that your preparation paid off, that your discipline held strong. The absence of applause allows you to anchor yourself in reality, reminding you that today's win is not a permanent crown, but just one battle in a war that never ends. The invisible struggle behind the victory. If I were to tell a non-trader that I made $10,000 today, they might say, "Wow, that's incredible." But they will never understand that behind those $10,000 were hundreds of small decisions. Choosing the right entry, setting a stop loss, resisting the urge to close early, ignoring the noise of financial news, and holding steady through moments when fear screamed louder than logic. The triumph is not just in the money earned. The triumph is in mastering yourself when it mattered most. Anyone can click a button to enter a trade. The real win is not pulling the trigger. It is holding your nerve when the market tempts you to abandon your plan. And yet, that mastery is invisible to others. People will never know that you sat in your chair, muscles tense, as the chart wavered against you before finally turning your way. They will never know that you fought the urge to doubt your system, that you reminded yourself of the probabilities, that you breathed deeply and said, "Trust the process." The lonely triumph lies in knowing you did the right thing when nobody was there to applaud you for it. Why triumphs feel empty to outsiders? It is a peculiar feeling when you share your win with someone outside the trading world. You might say, "I just closed a position for $5,000. They might respond with excitement, but the conversation ends quickly. They cannot ask the questions that matter. They cannot relate to the intensity of watching every tick, to the mental exhaustion that comes after hours of discipline. To them, it sounds like luck, and sometimes their reaction even feels dismissive. They might say, "That's great, but be careful. You could lose it just as fast." They do not mean harm, but they cannot understand that you did not stumble into this outcome. You engineered it. You built it brick by brick with patience, knowledge, and self-control. That disconnect creates a sense of isolation. You realize your victories will never be fully appreciated by the outside world, and in a strange way, you stop needing them to be. The danger of chasing recognition. There is a subtle danger hidden in the lonely nature of triumphs. Some traders, unable to bear the silence, chase recognition. They run to social media, posting screenshots of their wins, seeking validation through likes and comments. For a while, it feels good. People notice you, they applaud you. But eventually, that external validation becomes a trap. The market does not care about likes. The market does not care if your post goes viral. The market will punish you the moment you trade for recognition instead of trading for discipline. The greatest traders I know do not parade their victories online. They keep them private, recorded only in their journals, because they understand the moment you crave applause, you hand your emotions over to the crowd. True triumph in trading must be internal, not external. It must be something you recognize in yourself, not something you need others to recognize for you. The quiet after the win. There is a strange silence that fills the room after a big win. It is almost unsettling. The adrenaline fades, the market closes, and you find yourself alone again, staring at a balance that is larger than it was in the morning. For some traders, that silence feels empty. For me, after years in the markets, that silence has become a friend. It is in that quiet that I reflect, that I write in my journal, that I remind myself, this is not the end. Tomorrow, the market opens again, indifferent to what I achieved today. My job is not to celebrate too loudly, not to fall into the trap of pride, but to return to the discipline that brought me here. The silence after a win is a test. Will you let your ego grow, or will you let humility keep you sharp? The best traders know that humility is the only shield against the market's inevitable reversals. Learning to love the lonely triumph. With time, I have learned to embrace the loneliness of victory. I no longer expect others to understand. I no longer crave their applause. The triumph is mine, and mine alone, and that is enough. Because hidden inside that loneliness is something powerful. Freedom. The freedom to know that I built this skill myself, that I do not need the validation of the world, that I can quietly generate results on my own terms. That freedom is priceless. In fact, it is the loneliness of triumph that separates traders from gamblers. A gambler seeks excitement, noise, and recognition. A trader seeks mastery, clarity, and peace. The gambler wants the crowd. The trader wants the silence. The legacy of lonely triumphs. Looking back after more than a decade, I realize my career has been a collection of lonely triumphs stitched together. Each win was quiet, each victory unnoticed, but together they built a life of independence. And while there are no trophies on my shelf, no medals hanging from my wall, I carry something greater. The knowledge that I fought the hardest battles within myself and emerged stronger. My triumphs are not celebrated in headlines. They are written in the balance of my account, in the pages of my journals, and in the discipline of my daily routine. They may be invisible to the world, but they are everything to me. Closing reflection. In trading, victories will rarely come with applause. They will not be paraded in front of colleagues or celebrated in banquets. They will arrive quietly, in the stillness of your own space. They will test your humility, your self-awareness, and your ability to find satisfaction without validation. The lonely triumph is one of the most profound experiences a trader can have. It is not about the money alone. It is about the mastery of self. And while the world may never fully understand, you will. And that understanding is enough. Because at the end of the day, trading is not about proving yourself to others. It is about proving to yourself that you can face the chaos of the market and remain unshaken. That is the real triumph. And yes, it will always be a lonely one. Lessons after a decade. What 10 years in the market teach you about yourself and the world? After a decade of living in the markets, certain truths crystallize in ways that no book, seminar, or motivational speech could have ever conveyed. These lessons are not delivered with celebration or ceremony. They are carved into your memory through years of discipline, error, loss, fleeting victories, and countless hours of staring at screens when the rest of the world is asleep. What I know today, I did not acquire quickly. It was not handed to me. It was extracted one tick at a time, one sleepless night after another. If the first years of trading were about survival, the next were about understanding. The years that followed were about building a durable mindset capable of weathering everything the market could throw at me. The truth is, 10 years in this profession does not make you invincible. It makes you more aware of how fragile everything is. Every dollar in your account, every edge you think you have, every strategy that seems to work, at any moment it can dissolve if you let arrogance creep in. With time, you stop asking how to beat the market, and you start asking how to coexist with it. You learn that control is an illusion, and what matters is how you respond when control slips away. The illusion of mastery. In my earlier years, I thought mastery meant building a strategy that worked in all conditions. I chased indicators, systems, and algorithms, believing that one day I would uncover the holy grail that would make me immune to loss. A decade later, I know better. The market evolves. It never stays the same. What works this month may fail spectacularly next quarter. What seems certain today can vanish tomorrow. The real mastery lies not in controlling the market, but in controlling yourself. My younger self had no patience for that answer. It sounded like empty philosophy. But 10 years of trading stripped away all illusions. If you cannot control your impulses, no system will save you. The strategy is only as good as the person executing it. Mastery, I now realize, is not perfection. It is resilience. It is being able to take a punch and still stand. It is recognizing when the edge is gone and stepping aside instead of forcing trades. It is not about being right all the time, but about surviving long enough to allow probabilities to work in your favor. The slow death of ego. No one enters this profession without ego. The very idea of trading, outsmarting millions of participants, extracting profit where others lose, appeals to that inner belief that you are different, sharper, more disciplined. Ego may get you started, but it will destroy you if you let it stay in the driver's seat. A decade in, I learned that ego has to die. Every time I thought I was smarter than the market, it humbled me. Every time I doubled down on a losing trade because I knew I was right, the market punished me. I have paid tuition in the form of losses that could have been avoided if I had admitted I was wrong sooner. Ego makes you deaf to what the market is telling you. It blinds you to risk. It convinces you to hold when you should cut, and to size up when you should step back. The market does not have to be smarter than you. It only has to be more patient than your ego. And the market is infinitely patient. What remains after ego is stripped away is humility. Not weakness, humility. You realize that survival in this game requires acknowledging that you will always be vulnerable, that your analysis is only a probability, never a certainty. The most dangerous words a trader can say are, "This time is different. I cannot be wrong." The psychology of pain. If trading teaches you anything, it is how to live with pain. Not the sudden kind, like a broken bone, but the slow, grinding kind that eats at you from within. The pain of watching a stop loss hit. The pain of seeing a trade you closed too early run for miles without you. The pain of waking up at 3 in the morning to check futures only to realize your position is bleeding red. Pain becomes a constant companion. Early on, I tried to resist it, to fight it. But after 10 years, I learned that pain is part of the business model. Just like a store pays rent and electricity, a trader pays in discomfort and emotional turbulence. Pain is the cost of entry. What separates professionals from amateurs is not the absence of pain, but how they manage it. Amateurs let pain dictate their behavior, cutting winners too quickly, letting losers run, chasing revenge trades. Professionals learn to acknowledge the pain without letting it steer the wheel. They compartmentalize, they breathe, they execute their plan even when every cell in their body screams to do the opposite. Pain is a teacher. It whispers lessons that no chart pattern can show you. It teaches you discipline, patience, and above all, detachment. If you cannot make peace with pain, the market will eject you. The value of silence. A decade in the markets also teaches you the value of silence. In the beginning, I wanted to talk about every trade, every idea, every win and loss. I sought validation. I wanted others to know I was doing something special. Over time, I realized that talking often does more harm than good. The market rewards clarity of thought, and constant noise clouds that clarity. Sharing too much exposes you to outside opinions that can shake your confidence. Boasting about wins only sets you up for humiliation when losses inevitably come. And discussing strategies publicly dilutes focus. Silence becomes your ally. You learn to keep your head down, execute, and let results speak quietly over time. This does not mean you isolate yourself completely, but you choose carefully who you share with. You build a circle so small it might only contain 1 or 2 people who truly understand what you do. Everyone else remains outside because they cannot possibly comprehend the weight of decisions you make daily. In the end, the best traders I have met are not the loudest. They are the quiet professionals who understand that markets do not reward noise. They reward consistency. Cash capital preservation above all. In the first years, I was obsessed with making money. I wanted to double accounts, triple them, hit home runs. The longer I traded, the more I realized that survival is the real game. Making money is secondary to not losing it all. Capital preservation is the cornerstone of longevity. You can always rebuild after a small drawdown, but blow up your account and you are done. No matter how brilliant your strategy is, without capital, you are sidelined. The pros who last a decade or more all share one trait. They protect their capital with ruthless discipline. This means respecting risk limits, no matter how tempting it is to ignore them. It means being willing to sit in cash when conditions are unclear. It means accepting small losses as the price of doing business instead of letting them balloon into catastrophes. 10 years in, my mindset has shifted. I no longer chase outsized gains. I measure success by how well I protect my downside. Ironically, when you focus on defense, the offense often takes care of itself. The gains accumulate, slowly and steadily, while the risk of ruin diminishes. The long game. Trading for a decade reveals how short-term most people's thinking really is. The average retail trader obsesses over today's trade, this week's setup, the latest news release. But after years in the market, you begin to zoom out. You see that one trade means nothing. 1 month means little. What matters is the body of work you build over years. You stop chasing perfection on a single entry and instead refine your process so that over hundreds of trades, the edge emerges. You stop trying to predict where the market will go tomorrow and instead focus on how to consistently apply risk management today. You stop measuring yourself against others and instead measure yourself against your own past performance. The long game is not glamorous. It does not provide adrenaline rushes or instant gratification, but it is the only game worth playing if you intend to last. Who you become. The greatest lesson after 10 years is not about charts, indicators, or risk models. It is about who you become. Trading strips you down. It removes the illusions, the pretenses, the false confidence. It forces you to confront your weaknesses, greed, fear, impatience, pride, and either overcome them or be destroyed by them. In that process, you change. You become calmer, more disciplined, less reactive. You stop chasing quick wins, not only in the market, but in life. You learn to think in probabilities, to detach from outcomes, to manage risk in every decision. I sometimes joke that trading is less about making money and more about becoming a different version of yourself, a version forged in fire. But there is truth in that. After 10 years, I am not the same person who opened his first account. I am someone who understands that freedom is not free, that independence has a price, and that the market is the most unforgiving teacher you could ever ask for. Final reflection. Looking back, the lessons of a decade are not flashy. They do not make for exciting headlines or viral quotes. They are simple, but simplicity is deceptive. They are the kind of lessons you can only learn by living them. Mastery is resilience, not perfection. Ego must die if you want to survive. Pain is part of the business model. Silence protects clarity. Capital preservation matters more than profit. The long game is the only game. And above all, trading is less about conquering the market and more about conquering yourself. After 10 years, I do not feel like a master. I feel like a student, one who has finally learned how little control he has, but how much control he can build over his own decisions. That realization is what keeps me grounded. It is what allows me to show up every day, knowing the market owes me nothing, yet also knowing I have built the strength to endure whatever it delivers. The gift of solitude. Trading is a paradox. At first, solitude feels like a punishment. You sit in silence, staring at screens that flash with numbers and candles, and the weight of uncertainty presses against your chest. The world outside feels distant, almost irrelevant, while you wrestle with decisions that could make or break your account. To the inexperienced, this solitude is suffocating. But to the seasoned trader, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes a gift. Solitude in trading is not emptiness, it is clarity. When the noise of the crowd fades, when you are no longer swayed by the frenzy of opinions on financial television or social media, you begin to hear something purer, the language of the market itself. Price action speaks without distortion. Patterns unfold like chapters in a story. In solitude, you learn to listen. The greatest edge a trader can ever cultivate is not a secret indicator, not insider whispers, not some algorithm that promises certainty. The edge is the ability to remain unmoved by the hysteria that consumes others. Solitude trains you in that discipline. It teaches you to operate without needing validation, without craving someone to tell you that you are right. Over the years, I have come to see solitude as a mirror. It shows me who I am when no one is watching. It exposes my impulses, my fears, my greed. There is no audience to impress, no manager to please. There is only me, the chart, and the truth of my own decisions. At first, that reality was terrifying, but in time, it became liberating. Because once you accept that you alone are responsible, you also realize that you alone hold the power to change, to improve, to evolve. The solitude of trading also sharpens appreciation for the rare moments of connection. When you do meet another trader who understands, who has walked through the same fire, the bond is profound. But you do not need that bond to survive. You can thrive in your independence. And that is the quiet power solitude gives you: resilience. Outside observers often misinterpret this solitude. They think it must be lonely, even miserable. But they cannot see what it does for the trader's mind. It distills focus, builds endurance, and breeds self-reliance. In a world addicted to noise, distraction, and endless chatter, solitude becomes a competitive advantage. And perhaps this is the greatest gift of all. Solitude forces you to discover yourself. Not the image you project to others, not the mask you wear in public, but your true nature. Are you patient or impulsive? Do you honor discipline or chase recklessness? Do you crumble in fear or hold steady when pressure peaks? The market will test these questions relentlessly, and solitude ensures you cannot run from the answers. As I look back on more than a decade in this business, I no longer see solitude as a burden. It has been my silent mentor, my most honest companion. Without it, I would still be chasing the illusions of quick success, still lost in the noise of the crowd. With it, I have found not only a career, but a way of life defined by self-mastery. So to anyone just stepping into this world, I say, do not fear the solitude. Welcome it. In time, you will see it for what it truly is. Not an emptiness, but a crucible. Not isolation, but empowerment. Trading is indeed a solitary profession, but in that solitude lies freedom. And in that freedom lies the trader's greatest reward. If you've come this far, it means something in you resonates with this path. You've felt the solitude, the pressure, the highs, and the brutal lows of trading. You know this is not a game. It is not a hobby. It is a profession, a discipline, and in many ways, a lifelong journey of self-mastery. But here's the truth. While trading is a solitary profession, you do not have to walk it blindly. You do not have to repeat every mistake that others have already made. That is why I built Trading Mindset Lab. This is not another signal group, not another flashy shortcut, and not another empty promise. Trading Mindset Lab is a place for serious traders, a community built around resilience, psychology, and discipline. It is where we strip away the noise, face the truth about our decisions, and sharpen the one edge that no algorithm can ever replace: the trader's mindset. Inside, you will find lessons born not from theory, but from years of experience, scars, and triumphs. You will find strategies to control emotions, systems to measure risk, and insights that turn solitude into strength. Most importantly, you will find a culture where traders grow, not by chasing hype, but by mastering themselves. So if you're ready to stop wandering, if you're ready to trade with clarity and conviction, I invite you to join us. Subscribe to Trading Mindset Lab today. Step into a space where discipline is respected, where experience is shared, and where the lonely road of trading becomes a path toward mastery. The market will not wait for you. The question is, will you take the next step?